Welcome to For the Long Run, the podcast exploring the why behind what keeps runners running long, strong, and motivated. I'm your host, Jonathan Levitt. I've been running for a few years now and have the privilege of meeting many incredible runners on my travels all across the country. This podcast is intended to share those amazing conversations. And welcome back. I am here in Flagstaff with Ben Bruce. Ben, thanks for joining today.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
For sure. So you've been out in Flagstaff for a while now. I remember last time I was out here, you said it was what, about 15 years?
Oh, not that long. I moved here in 2011, the very end of 2011.
Got it.
So I guess getting close to a decade, but not quite.
Still struggling on stairs though, right?
Yeah. The stairs are always get you out of breath if you have to run up and down. But some days you have good stair climbs.
Nice.
Yeah.
So who is Ben Bruce?
Geez. A lot of different hats these days. I coach, run myself still competitively, and father of two boys. My wife's a professional marathoner as well. So, so some days it's a dad, some days I'm a coach, some days I'm a husband. I guess I'm a little bit of each day.
Nice. So. How do you work on balance between all of those things, or is balance something you focus on, or how do you sort of navigate wearing those different hats?
I guess since a lot of the new things in my life, like the kids and the coaching taking a bigger role, and then also my wife running so well right now, a lot of times it's sort of putting them first, which is a little bit of a change. When I was younger and I could always get my running done first. Right. So now just sort of a little bit of a compromise once in a while where I may miss part of a run or have to do runs at different times, but it's still all good stuff. You get in a certain routine where you want to run at the same time in the morning or do your double at a certain time, but sometimes that just gets switched around, especially with certain things with kids. It's like you can't control that, and but all in all, there's no complaints.
Cool. So I loved your post on Chicago and how your pacing efforts were, or how your pacing efforts went. A lot of people were curious to hear a little bit more about that. What was it like pacing that group with Steph and helping other people work towards their goals?
Yeah, pacing in Chicago was pretty cool. When we decided Steph was going to run Chicago, right from the beginning, we, like myself and Steph and Ben, Coach Ben Rosario, and our agent Josh Cox were all on board with me pacing. And from Chicago's standpoint, which makes a lot of sense, that they didn't want me to just be pacing Steph, because to make it fair for other runners and kind of within the rules is me pacing at a certain pace, which earlier this year I went to Rotterdam with Alafine from the team and paced her, but that was a little different because there was really no other women trying to run what she was running. So we kind of had the luxury of me running a certain pace for her, where this was like, the agreement was I needed to run a pace, even if my wife was one of the people falling off the group, that I was supposed to pace at a certain pace. So that was something that I was okay with, and Steph was okay with that, because in fairness of this sport, like that's what races do. They'll set up pacers, and we ran a certain pace, and luckily Steph was there for a long time. And early on there was 5 women in the group, and then by about halfway it was down to 4, which ended up being the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th place finishers in the race. It was good, and I would like to think that my pacing benefited those 4 women all running big PRs.
Definitely. Yeah, it was super awesome to see. Lizzie Flanagan was a guest on the podcast a couple weeks ago. I think she was part of that pack as well. She was pretty happy with how her day went.
Yeah, that was kind of nice. At the technical meeting the day before, I talked to most of the women that were going to be in that group, and just let them know that the goal is 1:12:30 to 1:13 at halfway, but we had just figured, I've always been a believer that when you're pacing a group and that going a touch slower but keeping the group together longer is always beneficial. So instead of trying to be a few seconds too fast and maybe potentially having less people, I was like, the goal would really be to try to be close to 1:13, and I think we were 1:12:56, and I don't know, I've paced the women on our team a lot and some of the guys, so I've done a lot of pacing, and sometimes like I give myself a quiet pat on the back once in a while, because I'm able to hit the pace usually pretty well. And So to come through halfway, I almost wanted to like point to the clock and be like, there we go.
Listen, trust me.
Yeah. Because I think even I forget, maybe around 10K, like Fanula, the Irish girl, came up, and because I just said, hey, how are you feeling? And she's just like, what pace are you running? Because the GPS doesn't work very well in Chicago a lot. And so she just
like a lot of 27-mile runs.
Yeah, she just stopped looking, and I knew that wouldn't happen. But so I was just looking at the actual mile markers, and I think I said to her, I was like, we're probably around 1:12:45 for half pace, and we came 1:12:55. So it was like, but I think that keeping that group together was very beneficial for all of the women.
What tips do you have for pacing? What are some of the tricks that you've learned over the years?
You kind of have to let like what's going around you disassociate from it, because it's totally different going out on a track with one person behind you or by yourself, versus starting a major marathon where there's hundreds of people that are getting excited and jumping off the line, and just in all the huge crowd. And in Chicago, you go under a tunnel like right away, and then there's just lots of people cheering, and you have to be like, just stay controlled. So what I usually try to tell myself is like, we were trying to hit 5:32 to 5:34 for the miles basically. And so I was like, if I try to run more like 5:35 to 5:40 the first mile, it'll most likely be a touch quicker than that, but that's where we want to be. And even if it is a touch slower, that's probably better than too fast. So yeah, and I think it's like anything, to learn skill. Some people are better at pacing than others, and that's not a good or bad thing. Sometimes I wish that could be the person to sit in a group and not care about what the clock says, but I've always, even when I'm running my own races, like I feed from knowing the splits and knowing the time. And so I guess that's why I've been able to do a good job pacing. Cool.
How has your relationship and coaching with the HOKA Northern Arizona Elite team evolved over the years?
Before I was official assistant coach on the team, I was always one of the older people on the team. So I think Ben Rosario and I would just chat a lot anyways about certain workouts, or he'd run ideas by me. And that was kind of a natural progression that, we had one meeting, and he put it pretty bluntly. And, he said Father Time was always going to win, because as I've had a long career, uninterrupted injury. So your body just gets sort of beat up, and the amount of hard workouts I can do, and the frequency has gone down. And so we just talked about me, I still wanted to keep running, but from building a team standpoint and trying to bring in new people and being able to pay them a contract, it's like something's got to go somewhere. So that's what we kind of came up with, the idea of me taking an assistant coach role, but then also still running myself. And that, as we transition into years down the road, we'll probably transition more into just a coaching role and less of a running role.
Cool. Let's talk about the team in general. I think that you guys are leading the way from I'm sure that you guys are leading the way from a social media standpoint, from a share the process standpoint. And that's very intentional. What's the focus that the team has on, or let's talk about the focus that the team has on sharing the highs and the lows, and why was that decided on as a major focus?
Well, I think what's unique with our group is a lot of professional groups usually get funding right away from a company. Right. They bring on a coach they want, and then they bring in the athletes. Mm-hmm. And this is a little different because Ben and Jen came to Flagstaff and they wanted to start a group. And so the first year, the group ran basically out of their pocket. Some people in the group still had some smaller sponsorships or travel for different companies and stuff, but their vision was to get a title sponsor, and they were doing it from a very professional standpoint. Ben was he was the owner of a running store back in St. Louis, and he understood the business side of things, and he wanted to create a professional sports team, not just a developmental group of runners. As someone that were professional, but also acted like professionals. If you see big sports, good game or bad game, they got to show up at that press conference. Right. And if they're pissed off, they still have to talk to the media. Maybe it's only for 5 minutes, but they got to give the answers to the fans. Right. And so I think that we've always, we created a mission statement that we would train hard, race fearlessly, and share the journey. And that means sharing the goods and the bad along the way. And what we've learned through that process, and we've seen a lot of met people, and they've given us great feedback that whether we win or lose or have a good day or bad day, that they want to follow along and see what's going on. And so I think we've gotten that feedback that they really do appreciate that. And yeah, it's sometimes hard to share the bad stuff, but you realize that we're humans. The people following us are humans, and they don't want to hear just the fluff and the good stuff in life. Yeah. They want it all.
Yeah, I think it's awesome coming from the perspective of an amateur. It's good to see the highs and the lows. I just had a conversation with Sarah Hall about this as well. And she was talking about, trying to use social media not as a highlight reel, but as like, this is my life. And, it can't all be good and it can't all be bad. But really just using it as a way to connect. And I think that you and Steph in particular do an amazing job with connecting. And whether that's through the running camps that you guys do or picky bars or the team, I think it's a refreshing approach, and I think other teams and other athletes are starting to do the same. And I think that the more we see this across the board, the better it is for pro athletes, amateurs, and everyone in between, for sure. But yeah, how you mentioned you have as a team sport athlete, you have a tough game. You still have to show up and talk to reporters. How do you manage to, coherently share when you're pissed off or when something doesn't go as planned? What's that sort of journey like, when you're making an Instagram post or when you're talking on a story or something like that?
Yeah, I think that a big thing that I view in social media is a big part of things now, and you have to find your own voice in trying to be someone else or trying to do something that someone else is doing just because it gets a good traction on their feed. That doesn't work. So I think it takes a while to find out what you enjoy to share, the way you like to share. For some people, it can be cathartic to just get out their thoughts. And if they're going to get out the thoughts, it's their choice. I'm sure some people get out their thoughts and don't actually make the post, but it's sometimes good to write it down.
Journaling.
And if I tried to share the stuff that Steph shared, it just wouldn't be the same. Like I try to give a little bit of what I've learned is a mistake I think younger runners will make is they assume that everyone is a avid runner following a runner and following them and knows all the details.
Right.
But they don't. Like the last post I made, a guy that I met that was a dad of Riley's another kid on his t-ball team. He's like, he played some professional golf, but he doesn't, so he understands professional sport, but he's not a runner. So he even said like, oh, thanks for explaining it to us novice. So I try to give a little bit of more like detailed information. And for some people that might be like, it's boring, but
it's your niche.
It's my niche. And Steph's she's raw. I mean, she's gone through a lot of stuff with pregnancies and kids. And so that's like her, like almost like cult following. I feel like one day at practice, like Scott Smith was talking to Steph and said, I had a really funny comment I was going to put, but I knew that like the Steph Bruce fans would just rip me apart. And so, but it's true that he was like,
on her post.
Yeah. He was just like a joke, but he was like, if people didn't take the joke the right way, even though like
shredded.
Steph and Scott went to the same college and like she would have taken it as a joke. He's like, I wasn't going to make that post because I was going to get ripped. I'll be ripped apart by the Steph Bruce fans. So, but I think that just shows that everyone kind of has like, if you can find sort of your own character, you don't have to change like who you are and what you want to share. I think as long as you're consistent about it, that's really what like, and then some people will naturally gravitate towards certain people because they maybe relate a little bit more with them.
Definitely. Cool. Let's talk a little bit about your camps. Feel free to plug away. Talk about when they are, why you do them, where they are.
Yeah, our camps is another one of like Steph and I are very different in the standpoint that I am always resistant to change and sort of like, hey, if things are good, why change things? And she's always been new ideas and let's do this and let's do that. And we'd always talked about doing a camp and never really pulled the trigger on it. And funny enough, when Steph was 4 months pregnant with Hudson, she's like, let's do a camp. And I'm thinking, like next year? She's like, no, let's just do it this summer. We've always talked about it. Let's just do it. And I'm thinking, because I guess the fear on my side is I'm afraid to put it out there and then fail. Like no one shows up, no one signs up. And especially as we work on this short timeline, because I'm like, Steph, people, maybe they have summer vacations already planned, but we put it out there. And the first year we had 11 people come, which made it feel at least like a good sized camp. And we've just, stuff that we didn't even think would come from the camps have come from it. Like people that come back and they've created like lifelong friends. People from camps will go to the races together now. That's awesome. This last year we had over 30 campers. We do it every summer, usually in August. We try to plan a weekend that we know we won't be racing, or maybe after a big race of ours. And we're looking to maybe do more camps throughout the year as we get older. But right now we're sticking with the one summer camp. And we like to coin the camp as like come for a few days and like live like a professional would live. You don't have to wake up and run before going to work. You can get up and let the run be like your morning, and then you can try to recover. And we do some talks, but we try to not make it this like dive into the deep dark depths of like training, philosophy. More like, let's simplify it, because running is a simple thing.
Right.
And we do that, and we take Flagstaff kind of sells it for us. We can go up into the mountains and run through the aspen trees. We can go down to Sedona, and this year we did a track workout down in Sedona that the campers really loved. And
full of oxygen.
Yeah, well, Sedona's lower than Flagstaff, so yeah, much more. Still elevation, and then at the end they talked Steph and I into doing our own 400s each, so they could see us run, and it was pretty fun, and they got a kick out of it. So it really is just a lot of fun, and I think with each year we're getting more comfortable putting them on, and I think the numbers are to the point where we need to maybe start looking into putting in some more.
Cool. And so where are you running with the camps?
We try to change it up a little each year, because we do have a decent amount of returners. So usually we'll do one. I like to moderate trail run, just because we know a lot of people aren't comfortable on the trail. So we'll try to pick a pretty manicured dirt road, or if it is a single track, very
smooth.
Yes, smooth, not many rocks or roots. Some years we've gone down to Sedona, and other years we've just stayed up here up in Flagstaff for the whole camp. We've done stuff on the track so we can show drills. They'll go into we'll do a strength session at Hypo 2, which is like a company in town that does a lot for professional athletes coming in town to train. The last 2 years we've been lucky enough to have like a surprise guest speaker. This last year we had Ryan and Sarah Hall come.
Oh, cool.
And the year before that, Jared Ward came and talked. So we try to keep some stuff under wraps, and I think the campers sometimes get nervous because they want this detailed schedule, and we tend to plan stuff up late to the last minute, but also we just want to kind of have it be, it's structured, but we like to save a few surprises.
Show up on Tuesday, you'll find out what you're doing.
Yeah. We'll tell you, meet at Buffalo Park at 4:30 p.m. on Thursday, and we'll take you through the camp.
Nice. It's sometimes fun to just have no control over the schedule and just show up, and somebody else has everything planned.
Yeah, if it's adults, it's like a great take on the old high school running camps, but since they're adults, it's a little less responsibility. Yeah. It's we can drop them downtown one of the nights for dinner and be like, the hotel is less than a half mile. You can walk.
Don't get lost.
You're fine. If you want to do stupid stuff, we don't got to call your parents. You're all 18 or older. So
yeah. Nice. What's it like living in Flagstaff with the culture that you guys have here with pro athletes and Olympians and all that?
Yeah, when I moved to Flagstaff in 2011, I knew that the altitude's great, 7,000 feet. You have the ability to go down to lower elevations for workouts, but the community of it all has really it's just huge. There's the people that live here full time, like our group. There's a lot of people that are professional runners or sub elites or just really good runners or masters runners that have made Flagstaff their home. They came here at some point and they just loved it. You have people like Mike Smith, who came here and ran for a while, and then he was coaching, and then he left and went coach at Georgetown, and then he is able to come back and get a dream job here at NAU because he just loves Flagstaff. So you have these diehard Flagstaff people, and then you also have at any given time of the year just tons of other pros that are in town training, running, cyclists, triathletes, swimmers. So there's no lack of. Sometimes I think, man, if it wasn't an altitude, you could host an incredible track meet right now in Flagstaff. The only problem is everyone would be racing distance races at 7,000 feet. But you got and I've been on runs where I'm I might have the 7th slowest 5K PR on this run. It's just dudes that stuff like that. So
it's funny. I had a similar conversation with a guy named Matt Daniels who lives in Boulder.
Yeah, I know Matt.
Matt's a sub 4 miler, and he's who gives a shit? There are 50 people that have run sub 4 in Boulder.
No, I mean, I've been on runs where I'm running with 5 sub 230 marathoners, women.
Yeah.
Not 5 sub 230 marathoners that are men.
Right.
Women. I'm like, oh, wow. Like, these,
they could drop me.
Yeah, like these 5 girls, like, if they could go run and like 3 of them could potentially make the Olympic team. And
right.
Yeah, so, yeah, it's fun.
But it's got to be cool because it keeps you on your toes at all times.
Yeah.
And humble, I guess.
And and the running community is fun. You get to meet people and talk, and someone stays in your basement once here, and then when you're in their city, you stay on there, stay with them. And, Steph and I basically, when we had our second kid, we moved into a slightly bigger house, and we had no reason to sell our other house because we were always renting rooms out when we lived there. And so we're like, we just turned that into a rental, and it's just been like a revolving door of runners there. I should have from day one had everyone like sign a wall, because I feel like there'd be, we've had tons of national champions that have like come here and then they'll go to Albuquerque for indoors and win, like Will Lear did that one year, pulled off the double. Shelby Houlihan stayed with us and went to Albuquerque and pulled off the double. And so it's fun to just have people staying at your places, and just all around town you run into people and get to chat and meet people that have similar desires and thoughts. And then you have the entire like non-track road running world of the ultras. So Flagstaff really has it all, because you can run on the roads. Lake Mary Road, you can go up in the mountains climbing thousands of feet and within a couple of miles, and kind of everything in between.
Yeah, it was funny. Anime ran over at A1 at A1 Mountain.
A1's like it's like a loop. It's like 7 miles up, 7 miles around, 7 miles down. So if you've lived in Flagstaff long enough, you kind of got to do the A1 mountain loop at some point.
Yeah, she was scouting it out. She was trying to set the CR there, but she was like, "Damn, there's some stout times out there."
Yeah, my favorite story of A1 is when we did it one day, and Nick Arcinaga wanted to go for like 2 hours. It's kind of like a pretty big barrier that you kind of have to commit early and pay the price. And so Nick went for it, and he got it. And we get back. We just did the loop casually and got back probably 20 minutes after he did. And he was just sitting in his front seat of his car, staring blankly out the window. And I think someone even followed him home and to make sure he got home okay. And then we text later, and like his wife answers his text. Yeah,
it's a 20-mile run. Right?
It's a 21-mile run, but when you rip it, and it's like, he was out of commission for several hours. Like we were texting with his wife just to check on him, and she's like, well, he hasn't eaten anything yet, but he's finally starting to move around a little bit. So, but yeah, those are the fun stories that get thrown around.
Nice. What are some of the other must-run roads or trails out here?
Aspen Corners is a big one. It's just, you're up at 9,000 feet, give or take. You're in the aspen trees. Like this time of year in October, it's unbelievable. Like all the aspen leaves are yellow, and they're probably my favorite tree in the world. And you get in these groves, and it's some of the most like beautiful sights I've ever seen. And you kind of run along the mountain, and you don't lose a lot of elevation and gain a lot. So you're up high, but it's not super up and down. Doing like, which unfortunately has been closed from the museum fire, the Mount Eldon climb. It's like a service road. You can go up the service road, which is like 5 miles that climbs 2,000 feet, but you can also go up the rocky, like technical side, which climbs the same 2,000 feet, but in like 2.5 miles. Wow. So that's more of like hard technical type of things. And man, there's loops that circle the whole mountain, and then along the way climbs that go up it. So there's a lot of must. The must do probably road runner workout, it would be to go to Lake Mary for a workout, and that's what we do a lot of our workouts. I mean, it's not as pretty, but it's still just a cool place to go do a workout.
Cool. What are some of the things you do to manage the altitude? We're up at 7,000 feet here. It's not, it's not low.
Yeah, you run easy, and easy means easy. There's no time set to easy. And some days up here, that is running really slow. You could be down in Phoenix on a canal and run sub 7 minute pace for a long time on easy runs and feel fine. And up here, that might be 7:30 to 7:50 pace. Or if you climb a hill, you just got to slow way down. We've been up doing it a lot. So we have, Coach Ben and I always work on like the adjustments of what we think that people should run for workouts up here versus in Sedona or Camp Verde. And that's another tool we do is we'll go down lower elevations. We can get down to 3,000 feet in about an hour drive, which is pretty huge for the drop in elevation. And also in the winter, if we have a big snowstorm, you can get out of the snow and go train where it's not snowy.
That's a nice little card to have in your back pocket.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously living here, it's easy to say it's probably one of the best places in the world from like a altitude standpoint. But that's kind of the argument that if you're dealing with a harsh winter and you're in like the Northeast, you drive and drive and drive, and you're still at the same elevation,
snow.
and it's cloudy and gray. Here it's a lot of sunshine. Colorado has a lot of great training spots, but they have less chance to get down to lower elevations to run really like harder workouts. I mean, still great places to train, but I feel like Flagstaff really has all the tools. You can also go run up at 10,000 feet if you want up on the mountain, so you can go pretty much wherever.
Yeah, it's a fun beast, that the altitude variable for sure. Why did you go for your first run?
Why
did you go for your first run?
Oh,
taking it back.
I guess my first run would have been I guess my first memory of running was I was 5 years old, and my cousin, who would have been probably a freshman in high school, was running like a local 5K. He was probably 13, 14, so he's about 8 years older than me. And I was like, I want to run it. And he's like, well, you're 5. It's a pretty long ways. And we were about to go to sleep, and I got up and I turned the light on and I started running around the room. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm getting ready. And I was like, bent. I was going to do it. So the next morning I went out, and it was a really small 5K, I think in Kaysville, Utah. And I remember my dad was out. It was a small enough race that my dad was like kind of driving along the course, because I'm sure my parents were even a little hesitant, because I have older brother and older sister that they weren't going to do it, but me being 5 years old was going to do it. And I ran most of the way. I mean, I probably stopped a few times, but I think it's like 33 minutes or something for
nice.
As a 5-year-old. And I don't know, I just loved it. So I guess it was in the summer, so I was getting closer to 6, but I didn't think anything of it at the time, but that was kind of like the memories of me as a kid. Because then I remember, you don't go on runs as a kid.
Right.
Yeah, I would just go run races,
right.
Which I think was good, because I'm a huge fan of like lots of different activities for kids, and not just like, I'm sure my son has the tools to be a good runner, but I'm not taking him out to do runs. Yeah, if we're at the track and we're doing drills and he wants to run a few laps, then fine. But I think just keeping that light, because my memories are always just of running races as a kid, and then as I got older, realizing that I had a talent to kind of take that to the next level.
Cool. What are some of the big goals that you still have?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting like transition in my life. So the benefit of having such a long career of not being injured is like I've accumulated so many miles that my body in a way is kind of filling all that and beat up, and it's like I can't press these crazy hard workouts anymore. But there's a lot of races out there that are just maybe like the ones I never got to, or in a cool area, or something that's a little bit alert, like a different type of race. Because even when I was running a lot of track, like I would still sneak off and go do like a trail race in Hawaii, because I wanted to go do something different. So that is like from a not as competitive side of it. Competitively, I think the one thing I've been holding on to is this consecutive streak of running at USA Track Championships, and it's 17 years right now. And next year, if it be in the Olympic trials, it's going to be even harder to qualify, because unlike the marathon where there's just a standard, the track is 24 people basically. And with the level of US running right now, that's going to take a pretty fast 10K, low 28 minutes probably. And so I'll probably try to do that in the spring, one more crack at a fast 10K. And if I can get back to another one, I'll keep the streak going. And if not, that'll be it. But that's probably, from a competitive standpoint, one thing I'd like to do.
Cool. What are you scared of?
I guess from that, off the last answer, kind of the fear of that, like, as I've gotten older, it's like Father Time will eventually
always wins.
Yeah. So it's kind of that fear of like not being able to run as fast as I used to. But I think the great thing with running is, I guess if you asked me in my mid 20s, like what I thought of where I would be at now, like I would have probably guessed this, because I've always loved running. Some people run until they start slowing down and they just retire because they don't want to, they're not interested in hanging on. Right. But, I guess I'm one of those runners that's sadistic enough to just keep hanging on and just try to keep it rolling and just find different challenges, whether that's trying to run close to what I used to run or try different distances. Those are all things that I've always been willing to try new things, but it is a fear of kind of losing that speed that you never thought about when you're in your 20s, the elasticity that you could just go to sleep and wake up in the morning and go right on a run. So yeah, I guess the fear of getting old, but with that also, I guess, creates its own new challenge, which I guess I'm on board for.
That's a good way to look at it. I had a really interesting conversation with Mike Wardian about the same. I asked the same question, and his answer was losing his love for running or not being able to do it. And it wasn't about the time. It was about like the process and being able to do it. And it was just that it was an interesting perspective on, why someone like that races like that or that often, or,
he makes a really good point, because when you put it that way, like I agree with a lot of that, because this year, a good example was I ran a 10K on the track, and it was kind of in the mix of all these different hats I'm wearing. I'd been in Rotterdam a month earlier pacing Alafine to 2:26 marathon, and after that race, Ben Rosario said, well, I think you'll probably be the only one in Stanford that did a marathon in 2:26 as part of their build up to the 10K. And I said, yeah, most likely. And that race hurt. It just hurt. Like I was fish out of water, I was always so comfortable on the track, but it was like the first time I just felt like, man, I'm fighting this body a lot. Yeah. But it was also in a way like so beautiful, because I was just like hanging on, and like I really feel like it was one of the races I pushed myself like as far as I could have. Some races it just everything comes to you, and a lot of times those are your PRs, and it's not fair because everything just it just
flows. Yeah.
But that was just like, man, so many times of that race I could have been like, if I just ease off and whatever, and I can walk away and like, okay, I'm not going to qualify for USAs this year. But I just fought for every second, and I ended up making it into USAs by like only like 2 or 3 people were, I was like 21 of 24 on the descending order list.
And it must have felt so good given the effort, too.
Yeah. So to do that effort. And so when you say about Mike Wardian, I mean, I've had conversations with him, and he's just a quirky guy that just loves to do it. And I guess that's where I am. I just love to do it. So as long as I can keep doing it. So maybe what he says is more of a fear that like not being able to do it, because you can almost be at peace with slowing down, but like just the process of doing it. That's why I think I mentioned doing some races that I never got around to.
Keeping the joy in it.
Because it's like, those are going to be awesome. Travel to a different city that I've never been to, or do something like a race that challenges you in a different way.
Awesome. Where can we find you on social media?
I have to remember. I feel like Ben Bruce is a popular name because there's this like rock star in England, I think. So I did like, I'm BB Jammin on Twitter, and then BB Jammin 15 on
You should be the
Instagram.
real Ben Bruce.
Yeah. There's so many handles because it's like he has fans that like make all those things up. So yeah, BB Jammin is Twitter, and BB Jammin 15 is Instagram.
Amazing.
15 was my soccer number back in the day. So
nice.
Still one of my favorite numbers.
Cool. Well, it's my birthday, so it's a good number for sure.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining today, and excited to share this one.
All right. Good luck at rim to rim to rim to rim to rim.
Thank you. That's it for today's episode. Like many long runs, it's sad when it has to end. I hope you join in next week on For the Long Run, and in the meantime, happy trails. If you've enjoyed this episode, it would mean a lot to me if you shared it so that others can find it and enjoy it too.